Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Friday, October the 27th. Good morning, TGIF. Hope you are all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. As you can see, we are starting this thing even earlier than planned, as it is 8:55 a.m. Eastern. The reason I am doing that, guys, we have got a ton, and I mean a ton, to get into, a ton to discuss here on this Friday. So wanted to make sure we got everything in, starting the show off even earlier than planned. I see John Edward, the Gamecock. What's going on? Also those in the Big Cock Club Discord. Head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel. Be sure your questions are answered there, guys, whether you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We welcome you guys. Thank you all so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon as well so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content. Also, guys, hit the subscribe button, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We drop daily podcasts there. And again, guys, we appreciate you all tuning in. Austin Gregory is tuned in live. Guys, like I mentioned, thank you all so much for rolling with the punches. We got a jam-packed day. Lots we're doing on the show, off the show, what have you. So wanted to go ahead and get this thing rolling. Do not forget, tomorrow, very excited, guys. Tomorrow's a big day. Yes, Gamecocks and Aggies, but it's about where we're watching it. Carolina Cigars in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. We will be at the Cigar Lounge. You guys may have seen the promo video we shot yesterday. Really nice spot, really cozy venue, a place I absolutely love going to. Going to be a lot of fun to watch the ball game in there. Of course, we'll have the game sound on, all that good stuff. And guys, win or lose, as I said in that video, win or lose, the Stogies will be smoked. So either way, we're going to have a good time. Lots of good football on as well. Outside of South Carolina, we got the world's largest outdoor cocktail party coming up at 3:30 between Georgia and Florida. Tons of great football. Tons of great football will be taken in. We'll be hanging out with the Carolina Cigar guys and, of course, all of you as well. So, again, that's a noon kick. I'll be there around 11 or so. Also, guys, I do want to share some good news with you. Very excited and honored. I was invited onto the official Texas A&M pregame show, the official Texas A&M pregame show with Scott Clendenin and Zach Taylor. So this is through like the official Texas A&M Aggies network. I have been invited onto their show 9:20 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday morning. I'll be going on there talking all things Gamecocks and Aggies just a few hours before kickoff. So really, really cool stuff, guys. Again, really, really cool stuff. RadioAggieland.com is where you can check it out, guys. We've also posted the link on social media, but grateful for the opportunity and honor to join the Texas A&M pregame show and really looking forward to it. Going to be a lot of fun waking up on Saturday morning, getting right after it and breaking down the game that'll take place at noon Eastern time at Kyle Field. Austin Gregory, the guest lineup is this. I can't even spit it out. The guest lineup is this. 9:45, we've got our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. 10:15, we've got Jake Crain of Crain and Company. And then immediately following that, or actually, here's what we're going to do, Austin Gregory. So I'm going to go ahead, get into this Tennessee stuff, what have you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, by the way. I'm really not. And the reason I'm going to do so, somebody asked me this morning, Chris, why are you even giving this any attention? Well, I didn't get to really talk about it yesterday. It was something that just came out. I didn't get to touch on it, did not get to discuss. So I'm going to give you all my 2 cents, echo some of the things I said yesterday on social media, and what a day it was on social media yesterday, by the way, my goodness. But I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. We'll take some of your questions, obviously your comments. At 9:15, we're going to go ahead and air this convo with David Nuño of TexAgs. It's about a 20-minute conversation. Then 9:45, we'll get into Marc Ryan. Then at 10:15, we'll get into Jake Crain, and then after that, we'll close out the show, taking more of your questions, your comments, and your voicemail. So that's going to be the lineup. Guys, just stay tuned. Roll with the punches. I know you'll do so. That being said, like I mentioned, going on the Texas A&M pregame show tomorrow morning, 9:20 a.m. Eastern. Really excited. Great things happening, guys. Let's get into what's taken place over the last 24 hours. South Carolina is being accused, which it's so funny when you think about it. Let's just start there. The accusation stemming from an article that John Bryce wrote on Football Scoop that mentioned that Michigan may have assisted and some opponents for their potential playoff opponents or what have you. Never was South Carolina mentioned. Never was there anything about the Gamecocks in the article. Yet, you've got Tennessee fans unraveling at the seams. I mean, unraveling at the seams, even after beating South Carolina this year by 3 touchdowns. You've got Tennessee fans claiming that it's South Carolina the article was specifically talking about, and that Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks cheated their way, right? Stole signs, had the book on Tennessee, wearing wristbands, right? Cheated their way to a 63-38 win. Not a 1-point win, not a 3-point win, not a 7-point, a 25-point win. And let me say this too, guys. If you're one of those on social media yesterday who allowed my comments to get under your skin and irritate you and send you into a tailspin, the joke's on you. The joke's on you because you took the bait. And that was the whole point. That was the entire point, folks. Number one, everything tying South Carolina to this is hearsay, he said, she said, what have you. Guys, listen, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, this is how it works. And I forget the name of the movie, but it's not about what you know or what you think you know. It's about what can you prove. You can't prove anything. There's no proof here. There is no semblance of proof that says South Carolina did any of these things. And by the way, guys, if they did, and I said this yesterday and I'll say it yet again, and I don't know why people took this so personally. I think it's because I know why. People look at the Spurs Up show because of the name, the Spurs Up show, and the logo is garnet and black. It's like some people associate what I say as what the University of South Carolina is saying, like associate TSUS with USC. I'm here to tell you that you should not do that. Like, I'm an independent content creator. South Carolina is my subject matter, sure, but like, I speak freely for my own self. So make no mistake, I'm not speaking for Shane Beamer, the University of South Carolina, anybody. I'm speaking for myself. I don't speak for all of Gamecock Nation. I'm just a guy that gives my opinion. And my opinion is, guys, like, I don't care if South Carolina cheated. And the reason in which I operated the way I did yesterday was because it's a lot funnier and it rubs way more salt in the wound when I have a Tennessee fan come at me and say, Chris, South Carolina cheated. How dare you? And I say, so what? Who cares? 25-point ass whipping. That's it. And you have no proof of what you're saying. So I'm not going to try to defend. If it didn't happen, you're wrong. It's like, sure, okay. Cool. What are you going to do about it? Guess you should have cheated better. I mean, but it's all just silly. That's the end of the day. It's all silly. And then Clemson fans, they try to start getting involved. And it's like, again, I'll say this. It does not matter what you think you know or what you maybe do know. It's about what you can prove. And so if you can't prove that South Carolina was doing this, if there's not some hard evidence, if there's not a paper trail, if there's not something that ties South Carolina and Shane Beamer to this directly, then it's all just hearsay. He said, she said, rumor, BS. It's insane to think about that we're having this conversation, and the only reason we're doing so is because it was started by salty Tennessee fans that saw that, well, Michigan helped somebody out. They helped somebody. That's the rumor. They helped somebody. And so Tennessee fans looked at that and said, well, it had to be South Carolina because there's no way the Gamecocks could have beaten us on their own merit. There's just no way. It had to be something else. And you know what, guys? I don't care. Again, at the end of the day, I'm not morally tied to what USC and company do. Guys, I think you would be really, really stunned. This isn't just a South Carolina thing. This is a college football thing. You want to start peeling back layers, go ahead. You want to start talking about somebody else's house, go ahead. But you better check your house and make sure your house is okay. Because we can go to every single program Every single program, we start peeling back layers, you're going to find something. Every one of them. Every successful program, especially. Because nobody's getting to the top in the college football landscape without bending the rules. Nobody. Nobody. And if you're not bending the rules, and we all want to believe that, run a squeaky clean program, well, you're probably not winning a lot. Let's just call it for what it is. You're probably not. I mean, guys, y'all think Steve Spurrier was squeaky clean at Carolina? No. I'm not saying he, quote unquote, cheated. Maybe by the letter of the law, he cheated, but he bent the rules. I mean, guys, we all knew players were getting paid for before it actually started happening, before NIL, right? Jadeveon Clowney was not living at Carolina Walk, the condominiums next to Willie B. He wasn't living in a $250,000 condo by accident. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, we have known this. We have known this. So I think if you're a Tennessee fan, if you're a Clemson fan, you better be really, really careful and tread really lightly trying to throw stones and peel back the layers of what South Carolina may or may not have been doing. And again, guys, there is literally no proof. There is literally no proof whatsoever. None. I think it's hilarious. Again, the day we had on social media yesterday was unreal. Because again, it's all just it shows the power of social media. It really does. Because without Tennessee fans causing a ruckus and making this a thing, it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be a thing. We got our guy Jake Crain calling in right now, by the way. I'm not trying to confirm what's going on with Jake. Okay, so we're going to get Jake Crain on at a little bit later in the show then. 10:40 a.m. Eastern. Okay. Okay, cool. 10:40 a.m. Eastern. So the plan will be now this. Marc Ryan at 9:45, David Nuño around 10:10, and then Jake Crain at 10:40. Just a quick update. Anyways, you see the title, though. Did South Carolina cheat against Tennessee? Guys, again, it's not about what you think you know. It's not about what maybe you do know. It's about what can you prove. And you can't prove anything. You can't prove anything. That's the hilarious part. And again, guys, like I mentioned, as I said on social media yesterday, and dude, it's got like 200,000 views on X, which is crazy to me because I don't even think it's a hot take. I don't think it's even a hot take, guys. And some of you may cringe when you hear this, but again, you have to understand, I'm not speaking as someone that is a representative of the University of South Carolina in any way, shape, or form. I'm speaking as an independent content creator who happens to be a fan of South Carolina. It wouldn't matter if I was a Gamecock fan, a Georgia fan, a Tennessee fan, a Michigan fan, a Southern Cal fan. Like, as a Braves fan, bro, I don't care if our pitchers are using pine tar on their hats, their finger. I don't care. I don't care if our hitters are corking their bats. I'd rather them not do that. And not run the risk of, guys, just don't get caught. I don't care if you're cheating. I don't care. And maybe that's to the extreme, like the cork in the bat thing. That's the extreme. But having a little bit of something on your hat, just don't get caught. I don't care. I genuinely do not care. And when it comes to the transfer portal and getting players to your school, I hope Carolina's been in the rules. Like, I was listening to Jake Crain this morning, Crain & Co. this morning. I thought they nailed it. I thought Blaine did. He said, my first reaction would be, I'd be pissed if my team wasn't doing what they could to steal signals, or if they got information and didn't take it. I'd be pissed. So South Carolina obviously did enough, if they did anything, which, again, it's all hearsay, he said, she said, BS, what have you. Because, again, it's not about what you think you know. It's not about what you even do know. It's about what you can prove. It's about what you can prove. And there's nothing to prove, man. There's nothing. Tennessee fans are on this witch hunt on social media. And again, I'd be on this side. It's not because I have Gamecock bias. I'd be on this side if we were talking about, I don't know, man, Tennessee losing to Georgia last year. You know what I mean? And they were convinced that they stole. I'd say the same thing. Tennessee fans are on this crazy, crazy witch hunt because they just cannot stomach the fact that their own team's incompetence cost them the game. They just can't stomach that. And so there has to be an excuse. They had to have cheated. And I'm just here to say that, again, it's not about what you think you know. It's about what can you prove. You can't prove anything. And I'm also here to say, guys, that, you know what? I don't care if South Carolina cheated. If they did, good on them. Truly, good on them. Because it ain't wiping away 63-38. It ain't wiping away that win. It ain't wiping away me getting to rush the field and taking a piece of the hedges from Willie B. It's not wiping away any of that. It's not wiping away any of that. So hey, keep unraveling at the seams if you like, Tennessee Nation. I mean, it's hysterical. It is a lot of fun. I mean, we had a blast, guys. We had a blast on social media yesterday. I know some folks, even in our Big Cock Club Discord, they got their feathers ruffled a little bit when I put out my tweet. I think some folks maybe missed the point of the tweet, or I say tweet. They missed the point though of what I was saying. They were like, "What is this? Why are you fueling this fire? Why are you giving this slapdickery attention?" You know why, guys? Because when I said that South Carolina cheated against Tennessee, like, so what? Who cares? Even if they did, who cares? The reason I did that, guys, is because instead of going on social media and saying, well, they didn't do this, how dare you attack the integrity? Like, instead of going this holier than thou approach, I'd rather play the villain. I would rather South Carolina just play the villain. Who cares? Truly, who cares? And I'm not saying Shane Beamer's going to do that. He shouldn't do that. I'm not saying the University of South Carolina's going to do it, but I can do that. I can do that. I enjoy playing the villain when I get the opportunity to do so. And so that's what I did. So for all the people that didn't understand the Discord, or maybe you guys saw the post, or like, Chris, what's going on? When I saw all these Tennessee fans freaking out, it's like, I'd rather just be the villain. I'll just be the villain and have fun with it. And it was funny to see the Gamecock fans that were in my mentions that were pissed off, that didn't realize it was a slight at Tennessee. They were pissed off at me, not realize, like, and that's how you know the joke is really on you. So, yeah, we we had a blast with it. I'm going to put this to bed, though, until something with some real substance comes out that connects South Carolina to this situation. Until something with real substance that isn't just Vol Twitter losing their collective minds, because they still, even after a 3-touchdown win in Knoxville earlier this season, they still can't stomach what happened last year. And that's the hilarious part. Tennessee could win 100 straight against South Carolina, but it'll be that 2022 game that held them out of the college football playoff that they will forever remember. There will be no beatdown great enough against the Gamecocks to erase the memory of that ball game. And that is so fun to think about, truly. So until something with substance comes out, we won't entertain this further. But I just wanted to speak on it, guys. I didn't get the opportunity to do so yesterday. And, yeah, I felt like it was something we should kick off the show with. Yeah, was it sand on the field? Was it the signals? Dude, it's just crazy, bro. I mean, And again, what's craziest to me is that the article from Football Scoop, South Carolina was never even mentioned. Never even mentioned. And yet somehow, some way, Vol Twitter made it a point and still is making it a point to lose their minds over nothing. So, anyways, guys, I want to get into your questions, your comments, everything else. Let's get into some of these. Normally, guys, we have just kind of an open Friday mailbag, but I really wanted to get on that. I really wanted to discuss that. Again, with the early show, did not have the opportunity to do so yesterday. Did not have the opportunity to do so yesterday. So, appreciate you guys' patience, love, understanding, all that good stuff. Let's see. John Edward, not surprised Diesel and Marc are suggesting we cheated. They hold a grudge still against Beamer. John Edward, let me just say this, and I'm excited to get Marc on at 9:45 because I tell you this. If he thinks the lights were flickering, guys, he's gonna want the death penalty for Carolina football for this. I mean, if he thinks the lights were flickering, because what did he say in that situation? Like, I can't put it past South Carolina. I don't know if they'd, I think that's something they do, bro. He's gonna eat up. He's gonna eat up this sign stealing thing. I mean, Austin Gregory says, I love how yesterday's guest is a Tennessee homer who said the articles about South Carolina sign stealing are complete BS, yet the guy who covers Clemson, Marc, is heavily reporting it as if it's the next big thing. I mean, Austin, do you expect Mark Ryan to just ignore it? I mean, come on. Hunter Johnson, Beamer might be many things, but a cheat or hack isn't one, or I don't see it. I don't see it either. I think Beamer actually runs a really clean program. I don't think Beamer, and listen, I'll go ahead and get out in front of it. I know that at his previous stops, he's gotten in some trouble for like film. But again, guys, if you're an assistant coach, and I bet you, here's what I bet you. I bet you a lot of these times whoever it is, maybe the head coach gets the information. You pass it off to the assistant. Like, okay, you're going to be the fall guy. If we get caught, you're the fall guy. But we're using this intel. 1,000%. We're using that intel. So, Justin Langford, what's up, Chris and fellow TDCers? I know we don't have too much to look forward to the rest of the football season, but we have 2 wins left in our final games. Justin, you never know. Could finish 6-6. You have no idea. We never know. Chuck, morning. Damn, Chris. Hope you're in a better mood this AM. Listen to your podcast last night with a bourbon and cigar, and you flat out roasted Carolina. Oh, Chuck, I'm assuming you're talking about the prediction or the storylines. I mean, I'm excited for the game, Chuck. I drank the Kool-Aid, and by the way, Chuck, that's a great way to consume TSUS with a bourbon and a cigar. So I hear you, man. I love that. But, I mean, Chuck, I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid before Mizzou, and it bit me in the butt. I'm just not going to do that again. I'm just not going to do that again. I'm just not going to do it again. So, Blake Miller, I think if you can steal signs, the other team needs to do better. Yeah, pimp on a blimp. If you can steal signs, then why not? I mean, listen, guys, listen. Let me say this too. I'm not sitting here telling you all that, like, I really am encouraging, like, we need to cheat. We need to cheat all the time, do all the cheating. I'm not saying that. But as I said on social media yesterday, that for some reason, I think I'll put it to you this way, guys. This is going down a separate rabbit hole, but like, I think there's a lot of things that I say that if the name of this entity was the Chris Phillips Show or SEC Unfiltered or something that was not affiliated with the University of South Carolina, I don't think people will get nearly as upset. There's a large sector out there, and it's a blessing, by the way. I'm grateful for it because TSUS has become such a presence that people associate, okay, what TSUS is saying is like what the University of South Carolina is saying. This man's a representation of South Carolina. And by default, because of the subject matter I cover, like, sure, but not really. Like, I'm an independent content creator. I'm an independent human being with my own opinions and thoughts. And I'm, guys, I'm not affiliated with USC in the slightest. They ain't sent me a check yet. Quite the contrary. So, you know, this really struck a chord with people, and I was surprised. I was just surprised. Like, I was surprised. I even had our friends over at the Hog Talk quote my post and said, if Arkansas was winning big, but you knew the coach was cheating, would you turn your cheek or would you turn him in? I'm like, dude, any fan who says they turn in their own team is so full of BS. So full of it. Like, are you joking? Are you kidding me? Like, and dude, in this day and age of college football and college athletics, like, if you're not bending the rules, folks, you're getting left behind. Far, far behind. So I was surprised at the reaction this got when I said that, like, I genuinely do not care if the team I pull for cheats. And I'm not saying outrageous cheating, death penalty, but if my favorite team is bending the rules, like, they should be doing that. They should. Because at the end of the day, guys, like, this season has shown us Shane Beamer has been squeaky clean. I mean, the dude was untouchable 2 months ago, right? He was untouchable. Done everything right in the program. This season is living proof that wins and losses mean more than anything. They just do. They just do. They mean more than anything. So I don't want to cheer for the most morally sound program. Like, I don't really care if that's the title you have. Do you win? Do you win? Yes or no? I'd like to cheer for a winner. Again, I'm not saying get your school the death penalty, guys. There's a line, but there's a line. You should toe it. You should toe it. And so it just doesn't bother me to say, like, to own up to it and say that. And again, it's so funny. Like, Tennessee fans, they look at the TSUS account when I say something like, yeah, we cheated, so what? They're like, that's South Carolina admitting it. I'm like, no, bro, I'm not affiliated with USC at all outside of just talking about the Gamecocks. I'm just saying I don't give a damn if they did or not. Like, we all watched that Tennessee game last year. We watched every throw Spencer Rattler made. We watched every play the Gamecocks made. There was no cheating involved in that. That was a quarterback going out and playing out of his mind. Was it cheating when the ball just barely graced over the Tennessee DB's hand? Was it cheating on third and 8 on the opening drive when Rattler threw a dime right to Trey Kenyon? Perfect throw. Was it cheating when Carolina's defense gave up 38 points and like 500 yards of offense? I mean, did they cheat then too? God, if they did, they need to cheat better. Come on, man. You're just, again, it's a fan base that is reaching because they cannot come to grips with the fact that Tennessee's incompetence costed the 9. They overlooked the Gamecocks, and they got burned because of it. And again, I don't care if you think you know or even if you do know. If you can't prove it, you have nothing. You have nothing. And it will not hold up. And it's all just social media BS, which is probably, most likely, definitely what all this is. Let's see. Justin. Good morning, TSUS fam. Honestly, I think it was BS to let Zay go. How can you preach love your brother and trying to build a foundation and when what could be a block in the foundation? Asked a red shirt, he gets the boot. Yeah, this has been the Xavier McLeod thing, man. This has been something that's definitely come up over the last 48 hours or so. And what? So the situation is that and Xavier McLeod is clapping back at people on social media. Is this what's happening right now? We got some stuff in the Discord, some new developments. Some new developments, folks. From my understanding, interesting. They wanted him to travel, and he would not go. Correct? I don't know. I mean, dude, listen, you just got to trust Shane Beamer. Made the best move for the program. Made the best move for Carolina football. You either trust him or you don't. Austin Gregory, more time to roast Mark Ryan. Let's see. Matthew Isaac, opinion on the game against Texas A&M this Saturday. I saw a lot of players were injured after the last game. Not feeling too confident, but last year they showed up against Tennessee and Clemson, so I don't know what's going to happen. Hope for the best. Again, Matthew, I talked about this yesterday. I just think when you look at the Tennessee and the Clemson games, and again, no, it was not cheating. And if it was, who gives a damn? And if it was, I hope they're cheating this weekend. Just call it what it is. But the way that South Carolina, Matthew, showed up and played those two games, I think you have to compartmentalize that as, you know what, that was those players on that team in those situations. Like, this is a totally different roster. This is a totally different roster, Matthew. Totally different. I don't think it's wise of Gamecock Nation to continue to wait on that miracle. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's Jeff Gullich points it out. 90% of the playmakers in the Tennessee game from last year, they're not even on the team anymore. Like, look at all the guys making plays in that game. Josh Vann, Jalen Brooks, Jaheim Bell, Marshawn Lloyd. Like, they're not on the team anymore. You know what I mean? So, Chuck Burkett says, well, if we cheated, then damn, why'd we quit? Start doing it again. Yeah. Yeah, for real. Indeed. Evan, no, this season hasn't turned out the way we wanted, but still love Beamer's passion for the program. You're right that he hasn't hired the people he said. Have to believe he can still win big. That is what Michael Bratton said more than anything. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to be frustrated about. I don't know that South Carolina has gotten the big time coordinators that they thought they would. I mean, certainly off the jump, Satterfield and Clayton White unfortunately has turned out to be not very good. Yeah, I mean, it leaves you kind of wondering. Ken says, Chris, what's Barstool USC's beef with you? Ken's, I don't know. I don't know. It's funny because obviously, like, the way that account works, different people run it like every couple of years. So it's funny. There'll be like a 2 or 3 year period where Barstool USC is like their TSUS supporters, or at minimum just don't hate TSUS. But whoever's running the account now despises the Spurs up. And I don't really know why. I don't know, Kens. You should probably ask them that. I don't know why. I have no clue. It's probably I don't know. I have no idea. I genuinely don't. I'm not even going to try to figure it out either. So it is what it is. Let's see. Austin Gregory, Tennessee fans went from blaming Hooker's injury to blaming a pregame locker room fight, now blaming a potentially bogus story from a Tennessee fan named John. Simply incredible. Yeah. Who knew, guys? I mean, who knew? Who knew that on game day eve at Texas A&M, we'd be going back talking about the Tennessee game from 2022? You know what would have been the ultimate troll move? Is today, YouTube would have shut me down, but today, just literally air the 2022 Tennessee game like on replay. Just that's it. That's the show. That's the show. Did South Carolina cheat? Let's watch it again. Let's sit through and watch the game again. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been the ultimate troll move. That would have been the ultimate troll move. So, and again, they're still biting on it, guys. They're still biting on it. When I said this morning, good morning to everyone except Tennessee fans who think stealing signs was the only reason South Carolina hung 63 on the Vols. It's hilarious, bro. Social media is wild right now. Harmon, don't let a rational Tennessee fan speak for the majority of us. I still think the Banks Hooker conflict caused a huge division. Hope you will all get right against the Aggies this week. How about, and you know what, to Harmon's point, I don't dislike Tennessee fans. I feel like I was getting in the good graces of a lot of Tennessee fans. Like I've never really had the major issues with Tennessee fans that so many Gamecock fans say they have had, Harmon. I don't have any beef with Tennessee fans. I would say this no matter if it was the Gamecocks in Tennessee, it was Georgia and Florida. It was like, replace the teams with whoever. Replace the teams with whoever. I just think it's crazy to be sitting here saying, and again, somebody like Marc Ryan, we're going to get into it. Marc Ryan, and I'm coming at this guy as completely taking my Gamecock bias out of it. Marc Ryan is going to come at this thing. He's going to come at it sideways because, unfortunately, and Marc may not admit this, but I think Marc allows his previous experiences with the University of South Carolina, with Shane Beamer, he allows that grudge to affect his commentary and his conversation. And maybe he'll prove me wrong today. But I would say it for any fan bases. Harmon, I would say it no matter what the teams were. Like, you're really grasping at straws. Like, you're really, really grasping at straws. You are. I'd say the same thing if the roles are reversed. Like, bro, no, we just got beat. Flat out, we got beat. They made the plays. We didn't. We slept walk through the game. Guys, even if, here's the thing, even if Carolina had the book on Tennessee, guys, the Gamecocks were 3 touchdown underdogs. You're telling me South Carolina scored 0 goose egg offensive points 7 days prior to the Tennessee game in that 38-6 loss to Florida. You're telling me that the signals and the intel they got was worth 63 points? Really? Come on, man. You're grasping at straws. You're just grasping at straws, man. Bruce, did you hear any more about Clayton White not being the sole voice as D coordinator going into the game Saturday? I haven't heard anything else, Bruce. Again, that's some chatter that I heard yesterday. I've heard nothing else, but I'll let you know if I do. I'll let you know if I do. We'll just say that. Let's see. Our guy Dalton in the Big Cock Club Discord says, if you are a coach of a major college football program and you get information on your opponent for free from someone else, then you would be dumb not to use it. If we got Tennessee signals from the previous week, then it's on them for not changing their signs. That's Dalton. That's what I say. And I think Dalton Dalton was one that when he saw my post yesterday, he kind of was like, what the hell? What are you doing? Pipe down, slap dick. And I hope Dalton understands now that it's like, I'm not sitting there throwing dirt on South Carolina. Quite the opposite. I'm trolling Tennessee. Like, if you want to cry about South Carolina cheated, you know what? I'm not going to be the guy that comes at you and says, I'm on my moral higher ground and South Carolina would never. As someone not affiliated with USC and somebody who is not, like, I'm completely independent. Sure, Carolina cheated. So what? Kick rocks. Like, what? Like, I'd rather look at it that way. I'll be the villain. I'd rather play the villain. Dalton says, if we are cheating, we must not be very good at it because our record is 2-5. Yeah, indeed. Jacob, Beamer has made no comments about the Tennessee thing. No comments. Guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into a quick break. On the other side, we've got our good friend, Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. We'll see what Marc has to say about all this and much, much more, guys. All that on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, October the 27th, 2023. In case you did not realize, we are not in studio. We are in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, hanging out, enjoying really beautiful weather. It's a beautiful place, guys. One of my favorite places on earth. And one of my other favorite places on earth is Carolina Cigars on the island. We'll be there tomorrow, guys, watching South Carolina take on Texas A&M, kickoff at noon Eastern. Guys, in case you missed it, yours truly, I'll be on the official Texas A&M pregame show. The official Texas A&M pregame show, 9:20 a.m. Eastern. 9:20 a.m. Eastern. Talking all things Gamecocks and Aggies, previewing the game. If you want to check it out, guys, I'll publish the link again tomorrow morning, but it's radioaggieland.com. Radioaggieland.com will be there, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Honored to have the opportunity to go on there and talk everything Gamecocks. Excuse me. Talk everything Gamecocks and Aggies ahead of the game tomorrow. Austin Gregory, we'll take voicemails. We'll take voicemails today. That's going to be the way we operate, Austin, from now on. All throughout the week, you want to call in, leave us a voicemail. You got up to 3 minutes to do so. You can get your point, get it out there, whatever. Tomorrow, though, after the game, from the Cigar Lounge, we will have the post-game call-in show after Carolina, Texas A&M, taking your questions, your comments, and, of course, your calls immediately following the contest. And, guys, let me go ahead and get out ahead of it. Because normally, you guys see me, we're smoking the pack when South Carolina wins. I'm going to be smoking a pack on the postgame no matter what. It'll be celebrating one of two things. Either it's going to be celebrating the win, or it's going to be celebrating the fact that tomorrow is the final road game. And maybe, just maybe, South Carolina coming home will result in some better fortune. So either way, we're going to be celebrating something, I can assure you. And we're going to be smoking the cigar. We're going to be getting after it. It's going to be a good time. So, anyways, guys, sorry. Got a frog in my throat this morning. 843-790-3377. That is 843-790-3377. You can call or text that number. Leave us a voicemail, guys, or just leave your comments in the YouTube chat again. We got Marc Ryan upcoming in 2 minutes or so. So we're going to get into our guests. 9:45, we got Marc Ryan. Immediately following that, I'd probably say like 10:15, we'll have David Nuño of TexAgs. And then at 10:40, Jake Crain is going to call into the show and give us his takes on everything else. So going to be a lot of fun, guys. Going to be a lot of fun. I mean, who knew, man? Who knew? We got South Carolina's got Texas A&M tomorrow. And the top topic of discussion is what happened last year against the Tennessee Volunteers. It's crazy, man. It's absolutely crazy. But that's where we are. And that's where South Carolina is. So Savell Newton tweet, I sure as heck hope we're having a horrible week at practice. He's saying that because it seems like every single week that South Carolina has a great week of practice, they play terribly. So, yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying. So, Jeff Gullidge, Tennessee fans will despise us for a long time, much like most Carolina fans despise Scam Newton for single-handedly destroying us in the SEC championship game. And again, Jeff, Auburn fans to this day, Jake Crain even, they know they paid for Cam Newton. Do you think they care, my friend? Absolutely not. Because guess what? That field goal still winning against Oregon, and that national championship still counts. It still counts, guys. It still counts. 204,000 views on this post. Really insane. Really insane. On the post about, I don't know. Anyways, again, guys, we await Marc Ryan. He'll be joining us here in just a second. Look forward to hearing what Marc has to say. Let's see. No, Bruce, South Carolina does not play. South Carolina does not play Tennessee next year. Okay. All right. That being said, guys, we have him ready to go. He joins us every single Thursday, but because of scheduling stuff, guys, we appreciate him being flexible with his schedule, with his time. And I'm actually glad we waited. I'm glad we waited. And we're getting Marc Ryan in here on a Friday instead of Thursday just because of the events that have taken place over the last 24 hours. Either way, it's always great to see him, our good friend, Marc Ryan, the fan upstate. Marc, before you say anything, my friend, just so you know, I got some intel delivered to me late last night. I've got the wristband on. I know already exactly what you're going to say. I know how to counter everything you're going to say. So just wanted you to know that going into this.
Hey, man, we got a game to talk about, man. South Carolina, Texas A&M's coming up, man. Can the wheels come back on the train here, man? I mean, it's an incredibly important game for Shane Beamer, and I think we said it, Chris. I think his seat is warm for the first time during his tenure at South Carolina. Year three is, even when you're doing well, year three is when the honeymoon period ends, right? It's also when, the top coaches separate themselves from the mediocre coaches. I asked Josh Pate this week, when do results matter? And I said, specifically as it pertains to South Carolina, Josh Pate said, year three. Marc Ryan said, year three, right? Then he said, I'm particularly interested to see what they do next year once they're able to patch some of these holes. So, what we've said to you, Chris, is, if Shane Beamer is 2-5 next year, should he get 2025, right? Should he get that? We understand Spurrier in year 6. We understand his dad, Frank Beamer, in year 6. But we live in a very different world than we lived in the late 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Chris, do you think you'll want Beamer to get 2025 if he's 2-5 next year?
I think so. But what I've learned, Marc, is it's one thing to sit here right now and say that. It's another to endure the losses and go through it and stand by that. So I've always been one that when he was hired, I said, give Beamer 5 years, just automatically lay it out there, give him 5 years. Again, it's one thing to say that. It's another to go through the losses and endure it week to week and see the mishaps happening. And especially if like the stuff in the press conferences and the off-field antics continue, like it's just, you know what I mean? It's a whole different animal to go through it, right? Because we went into 2020, and I mean, 2019, I said Will Muschamp needs to be fired. Very, very famously, people know that happened. But, we all went to 2020 saying, hey, there's no way Champ's getting fired. COVID, like the money thing, there's no way. And then when you start losing games, Marc, and you go through it on a week-in, week-out basis and you watch it unfold before your eyes, somehow that stuff didn't matter anymore, did it? So, I mean, it just goes to show that I would never say never. I would give him till 2025. But, I mean, again, how bad does it get? I think that's the question you have to answer. And you just hope it doesn't get to that point. Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate taking his time to join us. Marc, we have to start, man. I know we're going to talk about the game. We have to start with this stuff that's come up over the last 24 hours. And the Signal Gate stuff. My first thought, Marc, was this, thinking about your stance. And I haven't really heard a whole lot of your opinions on it. I just saw you simply went on social media. You sort of pointed out like the facts or what we know or what have you.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
In my mind, though, my mind went, okay, if Marc Ryan thinks South Carolina was flickering the lights, I mean, you must want the Gamecocks to get the death penalty for this because you have to believe it happened, right?
Chris, listen, I never said South Carolina.
I'm half joking when I say that, by the way. I'm half joking.
No, I got you. I never said South Carolina was flickering the lights, Chris. Okay?
You just wouldn't put it past them.
I simply said, I dropped the emoji, and I said, they've kind of lost the benefit of the doubt. Chris, you said, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Chris, shame on you. Shame on you. You said they're cheating. You said, okay, so South Carolina was cheating when they beat Tennessee. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. I never said that. You did. Shame on you. An old wise man once said, Chris, the way you will do one thing is the way you will do everything. Okay? And if you're going to excuse one act of cheating, then you're going to excuse all acts of cheating. And if that's how you want your program to be run, I've heard a lot of people say, Chris, you don't speak for the Gamecock program. That's never been more accurate. If you're saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. All right. So I would seriously consider walking that stance back if I were you. The thing is, Chris, if what is the greatest? This is a 3-word answer from you. Okay, what's the greatest predictor of future behavior? What is it?
Enlighten me. I have no idea.
Previous behavior, past behavior. Shane Beamer has already been fined $25,000 for sign stealing. You know this, dating back to accepting a Wake Forest playbook. So to me, it's like when we have the intel, excuse me, that Michigan likely scouted opposing games of other playoff contenders and likely provided opponents of those teams intel in an attempt to water down the playoff field. Boy, did that fail miserably. Isn't that hilarious? They get TCU. They get the easiest playoff opponent possible. TCU now, we have the intel that they caught on to Michigan sign stealing. They changed everything up. They used dummy counts that showed the old sign but ran a new play. And Michigan loses the game. Michigan loses the game, right? I mean, it's obvious, Chris, this had a massive impact on games, and you need to look no further than Michigan beating Ohio State 45-23, essentially doubling them up, and then Georgia needing a last-second missed field goal to go to the national championship game. Then you see Michigan lose to TCU, and Georgia beat TCU like they're a high school team. This is obviously a massive impact. To me, the reason why you raise an eyebrow at Beamer is because he's already been involved in this, right? Going back to what I shared with you, Chris, about, hey, South Carolina's kind of lost the benefit of the doubt on some of this stuff. You know that Michigan was scouting other teams, right? You know that. You know that Michigan was giving intel to opponents, right? You know that South Carolina then beat Tennessee with or without help from signals, and beat Clemson with or without help of signals. We don't know. I think it's fascinating to talk about. It's a fascinating content. And to anyone who would say, you don't know if South Carolina did this, I would say, you don't know that they didn't. And we have a kind of a sketchy track record here. Let's be honest.
And Mark, Ryan, at the end of the day, it's not about what you think you know or what you maybe even do know. It's about what you can prove. And right now, we have nothing more than Vol Twitter creating whatever it might be, and I guess past experiences of what Shane Beamer's done to the programs. But outside of that, we have nothing. So we're kind of just spending our time spinning our wheels.
Austin Gregory here says, Chris, what made us lose the benefit of the doubt in your eyes? And then it's like you get the stats, the predictable. I saw you, Chris. Well, it was 63 points, and there's no guarantee that you're going to do this and be great. The question is not, was it successful to the degree to which it was successful? The question is, was there cheating or not? Right? And if you decide there was cheating, everything involved is invalidated. Everything. So Austin wanted to know what makes South Carolina lose the benefit of the doubt. Chris, again, isn't that easy? Shane Beamer was fined $25,000 for accepting an opponent's playbook that he's already been guilty of sign stealing. The greatest predictor of future behavior is what? Past behavior, right? Cheat on somebody once, you're always a cheater. You see what I'm saying? So this has already been something that happened. And so, I was last week years old when I learned that the rules enacted in 1994 were actually rules. I thought you could scout other teams, you could be at their games. Anything you could see with your eyes or your phone is fair game. That's what I thought. But it's not about whether I think it's a dumb rule. The fact that it's a rule means you need to follow it. Okay? Only idiots say it's a dumb rule. Okay? One of our best sprinters in the Olympics got banned from running the 100-meter final because she tested positive for weed, Chris. Dumb rule. Yeah, but you should have known not to doobie up before the Olympics. The coaches have been aware of this since 1994. This is something Beamer has already been guilty of. Does that mean he's guilty? No. But Chris, what we got yesterday sure as hell ain't nothing.
And I would say this really quickly, Mark, on a side note. We don't have to discuss it in detail, but I would say to the point you made about the posts that I made, commentary. I like to have fun on social media, especially when it's at the hands of Tennessee, Clemson, whoever fans, what have you. The same way we talked about last week about separating I can speak on your coach and it's not a reflection on you. And like, you just separate that. Like, you're a fan of your team. You're not like, it's not personal. Don't take it personal. In that same light, that's where I come from, Mark. I want my favorite team to win. I don't care if they're bending the rules. I genuinely don't. So I'm not going to be walking back that take anytime soon because I don't want them to get the death penalty, but I just don't
Do
care.
you care if your team is cheating? Cheating.
If you're bending the rules, you're cheating, Mark. You're cheating.
Okay.
If you're bending the rules,
what
you're
you're
cheating.
saying
And
is
everybody's cheating in that regard.
So you don't care if your team cheats. You don't
I
care.
care if they get caught. I don't care if they bend the rules. I do not care.
No. Well, you just said, let's tie two and two together. You just said bending the rules is cheating, and you don't care if your team cheats. Chris, I mean, that's a morality clause that you need to look at yourself in the mirror about.
My team does not reflect my morality in any sort of. I don't care if they do what they got to do.
What you will accept in one case is what you will accept in any cases. And if you will accept cheating in one walk of your life, it stands to reason you will accept cheating in other walks of your life. And that's, Chris, that's only something, that's a you get right with God thing, man. I mean, honestly, quite honestly. I mean, this, going as deep as you want to get on this, to me, integrity, if you have no integrity, then you have nothing. Because in the end, it's not the ends justify the means. It's, can you feel good about what you did? Do you think Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and Pete Rose are feeling good about what they did? They're not in the Hall of Fame right now. They bent the rules, Chris. I think that's something you need to re-examine from within, if I'm completely honest.
Well, I look back on the Steve Spurrier era, my friend, and I can tell you I would not give back Marcus Lattimore, Jadeveon Clowney, or Alshon because it was the right thing to do. I'll just put it that way. So, anyways, let bygones be bygones. But so I'll ask you this on this hypothetical: if there is a paper trail and it does come back to Shane Beamer, I know you and Diesel talked about this. What should the end result be then if there is a paper trail and there's proof that South Carolina took this information? Like, if everything they're being accused of, or maybe even just a little bit of it, then what should be the final result of this?
Diesel's take is that if this comes back on Shane Beamer, it should be an immediate fireable offense. Immediate. To me, I'm of the belief, Chris, that if you can see it, right? Like, is it really cheating? If I can see the sign that the catcher is putting down, is it really cheating? That's my belief. At the same point, you got to know what the rules are, and these guys do know what the rules are. Okay, they're well aware of what the rules are. So, you are guilty of violating a rule, and in the end, if you have violated a rule, there are consequences. Why the hell do we not have inner helmet technology? Like we do in the NFL, like we do in some high schools. Nick Saban was addressing this yesterday. We got these stupid signs with Wile E. Coyote, and Bugs Bunny and everything. We got these stupid signs, man. And it's possible to learn what those mean. The most damning piece of evidence that I saw, Chris, was the Ohio State-Michigan tape. Did you see that? Where Ohio State makes a check, Michigan points up, signaling a pass. Everyone on there knows it's a pass. You still have to execute, the haters say. You still have to execute. No, man. The problem is that play action works because the defense doesn't know whether it's a run or a pass, right? That's the way it works. If you know, then it doesn't work. And, there is very clear circumstantial evidence that this helped Michigan big time. So it's the integrity of the sports. I would say, Chris, if it's something you can see with a naked eye, I wouldn't classify that as cheating, but I also have to understand what the rules are. There are words that I can't say on the air that I don't think are a big deal, but if I use them on the air, I'm fired. Okay? So it does it matter what I think, or does it matter what the rule is? Okay? That's how I feel about that.
Mhm. So, Mark, getting back to football actually on the field, like you started the show off with, or started off your segment with, Gamecocks and Aggies. This was a game you picked South Carolina. Oh, and we lost Mark Ryan. Maybe Mark got upset. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But we did lose. There we go. Okay. I don't know if that was me or you. I apologize, Mark.
I got you.
Okay, cool. I was just saying, getting back to on the field, Gamecocks and Aggies, I think what's fascinating about this one, this was a game that you picked in the preseason as a victory for South Carolina because, normally they have one of these type of games every year where they sort of come out and maybe the odds are stacked against them and they find a way to get the W. And I think this was a matchup over the preseason that we looked at maybe a little bit more favorably. So I guess I'll simply ask you, do you still look at this one the same way you did over the summer, that South Carolina can go into College Station and win it? Or because of the injuries and the realities this football team faces, has your mind changed on that a bit?
Fans want to hold you to previous opinions, and the opinions we have on a certain day are unique to that day. I think smart people take new information and adjust their outlook based on new information they get. That is my belief, Chris. However, I'm sticking with the pick. Gamecocks beat Texas A&M on Saturday. They beat Texas A&M on Saturday. I think they get their best effort. I think one thing Shane Beamer is really, really good at is when everyone's against you and all the chips are down, circling the wagons, getting everyone to produce their best efforts. Let's also be real. A&M is a wounded animal as well. It's not like South Carolina's walking into a buzzsaw here. They're walking into a backup quarterback with questionable efforts and not playing for everything they have. Not playing for all their goals are gone too, right? So, yeah, I understand South Carolina's coming in with a little bit of a skeleton crew, but you still got Rattler back there, man. And you could have Leggett back there. And I think as long as you have those two, there's going to be points on the board. I think this is going to be a field goal game. I'm going to stick with my prediction of the Gamecocks. And I can't believe how few Gamecock fans are actually with me on this game. Are there any Gamecocks out there that actually believe South Carolina is going to win? I'm not sticking with this because I picked this in the offseason. I stuck with this because it's like all I'm told is how done and how cooked South Carolina is, and I think it's very, very similar from the A&M standpoint. Texas A&M has a situation where the coach is on the hot seat, rightfully so, and the players don't much like the head coach. This is coming from intel I have within Texas A&M, Chris. Folks that I have that from my ties in Houston that are A&M fans, the players are not tight with the head coach. The players don't care that the coach is on the hot seat. Who do you think can get their players to play harder for them? Beamer or Fisher, right? So as I look at this game, I think that stuff matters. I really do. I really do. Chris, can I ask you something as an aside, man? When you consider all that all of the fallout of the last few weeks, right? All the fallout. Tumultuous. In terms of a rough stretch for Gamecock fans, where does this rank? It's just, the flickering light stuff is one thing, but I'm just talking about the losses, right? The losses on the field, the losses off the field, the injuries. It wasn't me or you that broke the sign stealing stuff yesterday. It's you and I get labeled for that, but it wasn't you and I that broke it, right? Like we took what we saw and we said, okay, here's what we know. Here's what we know to be the case thus far. But when you combine all of this, what was the record? Was the record 2-1 at one point?
The record was South Carolina started. Yeah, 2-2. Yes. Yeah. South Carolina's lost 3 straight. Yes. Gamecocks lost 3 straight. So
3 straight losses. 3 straight losses. Beamer breaking his foot on an inanimate object. And now the sign stealing tie-in potentially. Is this the most tumultuous stretch in Gamecock football history, Chris? Is this top 3? Is this top 5? If you were going to give me another example of a stretch that would rival this one for rock a boat ability, what would it be?
Well, and I don't want to have too much recency bias, but to your point, it's funny, Mark. I think great minds think alike, because I was actually thinking about asking you just the same, or just pointing out that it does seem like it's just these last couple of weeks, man, it's just one thing after another after another. I mean, you didn't even mention like Beamer's press conferences. It seems like every other day it's like some comments going viral or whatever. So, uh, very tumultuous times. I mean, I think you'd probably have to look back at like 1999, 0-11, losing 21 straight. That probably takes the cake for the most tumultuous time in Gamecock football history. Granted, there were no expectations, but I mean, you go 1-10 in 1998, 0-11 in 1999. So you're literally losers of 21 straight. I don't know how you top that. More tumultuous than that. My mind also goes to 2007 when Steve Spurrier and the Gamecocks started 6-1. They were ranked 6th in the country. They come home, they lose to Vanderbilt at Williams-Brice Stadium, and they proceed to lose 5 in a row to go from 6-1 and 6th in the country to 6-6, and didn't go to a bowl game that year. So, that was a tumultuous time. But I do think, though, Mark, like I think social media has amplified, because I remember then, like we didn't have social media to talk about it every day and like continue to hammer it in, and comments and quotes are going viral, and like, so
They're the
this,
gift that keeps on giving, man. Like if you're in the engagement
yeah,
business, all you
yeah,
got to do,
yeah.
like you don't even have to create content, Chris. You just, the last few weeks, you just wait for the Gamecocks to step in it, and there you go.
I have wondered, Mark, for the longest time, do other, and you can answer this because you're a Gator fan and you're also a national guy and you see other programs, and you talk Clemson a lot. I've always wondered, I'm like, does every program have their laundry list of drama like South Carolina does on a day in, day out basis, or is this a Gamecock thing? Because it just seems like it's amazing to me how much drama South Carolina has, whether it be because of their teams on the field, their teams off the field, their own fan base arguing with each other, their own fan base attacking others. Like, it's crazy, dude. It's great for a content creator, but like, do you feel like other schools have this amount of drama follow them, or is this truly a South Carolina thing?
Entirely unique to the Gamecocks. Entirely unique. Chris, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Is social media a toxic place? If the Gamecocks didn't exist, yes, it's still a toxic place. But it is, covering the Gamecocks is to take part in a National Enquirer magazine on a weekly basis. And if you embrace it for what it is, it's a blast. It's a blast. It is a lot of fun. I know Gamecock fans aren't having fun right now. I wonder long term if the best fit for South Carolina as head coach is kind of a steady Eddie, kind of a Kyle Whittingham, Chris, that doesn't fan the flames of a lot of this stuff and just helps settle it down a little bit. Just, like the fundamentally sound coach, a Billy Napier type, a Kyle Whittingham type. I wonder if that's the best fit, because when you got coaches, kicking objects, the wall or the bottle is always going to be undefeated in that exchange. You know what I'm saying? So when you factor in the losses, the lost season, the coach making a fool of himself, now tied to sign stealing when there's a previous incident of being fined and disciplined for stealing signs and accepting playbooks. This might be 1A and 1B with 0-21. It might be 1A and 1B. And we're going to look back at this, hopefully. And people don't realize this, but I want good things to happen for the Gamecocks. All right. People don't realize that because we're, our show is in the crossfire and highlights all that goes on. And to a degree, fans the flame of it all. But I hope we look back at this stretch, Chris, when South Carolina is compiling 9-3 and 10-2 seasons, and we can just laugh and we can say, do you remember when Beamer broke his foot and the Gamecocks were 2-5? Do you remember that? Like, look at how far they've come. I hope we get there, and I hope it's with Beamer, but my philosophy is always, Chris, I cannot tell a lie. I am Jim Carrey and Liar Liar, and I'm going to shoot straight no matter what.
Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Marc, one last thing before I get you out of here. Have you been labeled a licensed therapist yet dealing with Clemson and Gamecock fans this season on your show?
Oh, brother, I'm a mental health counselor. I am a grief counselor. That's what we do. That's who we are. In our field, Bud, we say that we have to wear so many different hats. I'm a host. I'm an assistant program director, right? I'm a salesman, right? I'm a writer. I'm a producer. I'm an editor. We do all of these things, right? And I think Chris, that is necessary. It's just another one of the hats that we wear in our job, is to show people the shining light. So let's close on this. What is the shining light right now for Gamecock fans? The shining light is you have a coach who cares so deeply about the program and the product. You have a good recruiting class coming in. You got rid of a bad egg, Xavier Henderson. That was the right move to make, right? That was the right move. Anybody that's going to be out for their own interest, he was telling me, Chris, he was going to transfer anyway. I mean, his behavior was like, no, I want my eligibility, because he was going to transfer anyway, right? So his father even said he didn't come here to lose. The kid had one foot out the door. That's not who you want in your program, right? If the school is paying for your meals and training and equipment and travel and everything, right? You play when the coaches want you to play. They needed him. He wasn't there when the team needed him. So, you got a coach that understands the value of commitment, that is extremely passionate about the school. You got a highly talented roster coming in. You have a young quarterback, Lenora Sellers, to be excited about. And what you do at this point, it's the same thing for Clemson, because Clemson's playing for Jack Squat the rest of the way, okay? You use the remaining 5 games to set the stage for playing a brand of football that can lead you to success next year, all right? Because it's still possible to have a positive taste in the mouth for South Carolina heading into the next season. In the month of November, you got 4 home games. You mean to tell me South Carolina can't win 3 of those 4? 4 of those 4? Playing good football, eliminating some of the mistakes, looking optimistically about what next year holds. I know, Chris, this goes against the narrative of Marc Ryan just quote-unquote bashing the Gamecocks, but if you listen to the show, you'll get all of this, right? You'll get all this. It's just that, as you've learned, what goes viral is the criticism. The kind words get 12 likes. The criticism gets 1,200. And that's the reason, if you watch your local television news, they lead with negative stuff, because the negative stuff goes viral. That's not my fault or Chris's fault. It's all of our faults, right? It's the fault of the consumer. So there is a lot to be positive about moving forward, and it's about finding good form the rest of the way.
And like you mentioned, Marc, one of my greatest positives I look at is this is South Carolina's last road game, and they return to the friendly confines for the Final Four, which they've been a much different team this season. Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Always great stuff, Marc. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll do it again next week.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you guys very, very much. And we'll see you on Offsides later today. Have a great weekend. Good luck to the Gamecocks.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Great stuff, guys, from our friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Really good stuff. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break on the other side. David Nuño of TexAgs helps us break down Gamecocks and Aggies. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, October the 27th, 2023. Guys, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this conversation. Our good friend, David Nuño of TexAgs, he joined the show to give us the Texas A&M perspective of South Carolina and Aggies tomorrow at Kyle Field. Sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation with David Nuño of TexAgs. We are Okay, we're having some issues with the video. Let me see if I can get this up. I may have done something wrong here. Let's see. Okay, let's see if this plays. Gamecocks and Aggies square off at Kyle Field, an 11 a.m. local time kickoff. South Carolina looking for their first ever win in front of the 12th man. Who better to help us break down Texas A&M and give us the Aggie perspective than our good friend David Nuño of TexAgs, the best place to catch all things Texas A&M Aggies coverage, etc. Dave, appreciate you taking the time, man. It's a pleasure to have you on once again.
My buddy, I appreciate it. I always enjoy coming on and our banter back and forth, where I think we're two programs and two guys talking about our programs that are still trying to figure out the team we cover. We thought we knew, and I still don't think we know. And one of us is going to leave Saturday in a weird spot when it comes to the rest of the season.
So, David, that's where I wanted to start. Texas A&M sitting at 4-3 on the season. The 3 losses coming to Miami in heartbreaking fashion, Alabama maybe in similar fashion, and then Tennessee on the road in Knoxville. So Aggies coming off the bye week at 4-3. What hasn't clicked? I know Connor Wegman went out earlier in the season with an injury. Has it been quarterback play? Has it been something else? I know Miami, it was defensive struggles. Seems like the defense has kind of found their stride. What is it, would you say, in a pivotal year for Jimbo that hasn't necessarily meshed and led to a 4-3 record?
I answer a question with a question. How would South Carolina do without Spencer Rattler? How would Alabama do if Tyler Buchner was their quarterback this year? How would any team do? I mean, Georgia without Carson Beck, they may still be Georgia. Who knows? But I guess my point is, Aggie fans don't care because this is the 3rd straight year that their starting quarterback has gone down for the year. So they don't care. They want results. The reality is it's somewhere in the middle. When you're on your backup quarterback, and I know Max Johnson is an accomplished quarterback, this offense should be better than it's been since he took over here. But that's the problem. You are on your backup quarterback. Why are you on your backup quarterback every year? Well, the offensive line has been the biggest issue. I am not one that thinks you need to recreate the wheel when you make an offense, right? Like, I want Jimbo's offense to be more creative. That's why they brought in Bobby Petrino. But if you can't block and you don't give a quarterback time, and that's been the big problem, then your offense is going to struggle. The problems against Miami early on, there were a couple of problems there. I don't think the offense was consistent enough in that first half of the opportunities they were given, but the defense was not the defense we see now. They were not attacking quarterbacks the way they do now. Since that game, the defensive line has lived in the backfield of all the quarterbacks they've taken on, really. I mean, Alabama, Tennessee, you name it. They get after the quarterback. But the offense started off in a great direction because I think Connor Wegman is a Band-Aid for some of the issues on the offensive line. Not only is he really good, he releases the ball quickly, right? And I think that allows the offense to get going. Max Johnson is an elite thrower of the football. Unfortunately, holds on to it a little bit too long. And the offensive line has been getting embarrassed. They've taken on a very good defense in Tennessee and a very good defense in Alabama. And those coaches made some halftime adjustments that I don't think A&M's have. So I guess to answer your question in a long-winded form, yeah, problems at quarterback, and it's not all on Max Johnson. But if you can't block, it doesn't matter who you have back there. If you're on your backup quarterback, most teams would be struggling. A&M has to look at this week against South Carolina as an opportunity. That's not a shot at South Carolina, but the facts are the facts. They struggle stopping the run. A&M needs to establish the run to be able to do what they want to do. They struggle protecting Spencer Rattler. Well, A&M lives doing that. So this has got to be an opportunity. We will see if it comes to fruition. But one thing I'll say about A&M, and again, this is not a shot at Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee. A lot of times it's not about what they do. It's about what A&M doesn't do or the self-inflicted wounds that we see. That's been a case here the last few years.
And David, on that note, and I'm sure you've gotten this question a ton this season, but I have to start and ask with Jimbo Fisher and his status. What's the mood in Aggie Nation, and how important do you think this game against South Carolina is? I know it's not one that, even if A&M wins by 50, right, I think there's a lot of folks in College Station that have their mind made up on the Jimbo Fisher era, maybe wanting to move on, what have you. Knew how pivotal a year this was for him. But, I mean, what's your read on it? How close do you think Texas A&M is to if things continue to go south, or it may just take one more loss? I mean, how close do you think a new era beginning in College Station is, or do you think that's getting overblown at this point?
I think it's overblown because the contract is what the contract is. everybody talks about these deep pockets that A&M has. A&M has some deep pockets for sure, but nobody is just writing a $75 million check just to do it. Like, and then who are you going to hire, right? You're going to have to pay somebody. So like, no, I don't think so. Here, it doesn't mean it's an impossible conversation. I understand the conversation. They gave this guy an extension after an Orange Bowl season where they're recruiting at an incredible level. At the time, it made sense, even though it didn't make sense. If that makes any sense, like I understood it at the time. I hate that it was guaranteed and basically resetting the contract, but I understood it because at that point, it felt like A&M was on this upward trajectory. And that same season, they beat Alabama. They're on their backup quarterback. So I understood the good vibes. What happened last year, I don't understand. What I'm seeing this year, I'm still TBD. The contract is huge. So are fans ready to move on? Sure. Yeah, but I mean, when you go 5-7, you should be on the hot seat. If you don't follow that up with a remarkable change, of course that's going to be the conversation. But the contract is what it is. It does me no good to go say fire Jimbo, because the bottom line is I don't think they are. And you got, as an A&M fan, based on the contract and based on the talent that you have, you better hope he figures it out this year, because I don't think he's going elsewhere next year. Like I think he still have this year. So you better hope that he gives you enough to A, keep players that want to stay, and B, keeps that really high recruiting class that he's got for 24. So that's the hope. The reality is we're about to see this South Carolina game. And again, you're going to have some people who curse me because they did it on the YouTube page on our show yesterday. But A&M has more to lose in the game in this game. They should beat South Carolina at home with the talent that they have, with the Kyle Field experience, with the amount of what's still ahead. They should. Doesn't mean they will, but they should. I think that's why Vegas is picking A&M to win. That's they should be the better team. If you win, let's just say they win 20-6, whatever it is, 24-6. Okay, if that were to be the case, okay, what's next? Ole Miss on the road. Until they beat a team on the road, a ranked team on the road, by the way, it doesn't matter. If A&M does lose, then those whispers become a lot louder. And look, I love Shane Beamer. I told you on my show yesterday. I love him. I think that schedule that South Carolina had was such a brutal start to the season. Plus, football's a momentum game, right? And had they taken one of those early losses, had they finished the deal against Georgia, we're talking about a completely different narrative. But this is where you are, and now you're going at a place that I think is hard to win in Kyle Field against a defense that feasts off quarterbacks. If you're a South Carolina fan, though, you're thinking, all right, that's fine. But we got Spencer who can throw deep. And I don't know what Xavier Leggett's, the most recent status update on him is, but that's where A&M's defense is vulnerable. So long-winded answer again of saying, I think Jimbo's safe, but those whispers are only going to get super loud if they lose to South Carolina.
And Dave, to your point really quickly, just so you guys are in the loop for your show on TexAgs, Xavier Legette was in concussion protocol after Mizzou. Based off reports late Wednesday night, he is expected to play on Saturday. So a big boost for South Carolina, a guy they obviously cannot afford to lose. On that note, Dave, you gave a little bit of a kind of a gauge on, your view of South Carolina. I'm just curious. You and I spoke in the preseason over the summer, previewing the season, looking ahead to 2023, all the hopes, aspirations. And at that point, I would have told you, Dave, that Shane Beamer was this untouchable guy after the way they finished 2022 with those big back-to-back top 10 wins. And I think this season, at least for me, has been a really humbling reminder how quickly all that can change, right? You lose a couple of games, you find out really quickly no coach is immune to the effects of losing. Your thoughts when you look at South Carolina, your just overall feelings on the Gamecocks program heading in this game. Have you been surprised what you've seen from South Carolina? Like when you look at them as a team, you look at some of the rankings, does anything jump out to you that's surprising? I mean, obviously the sack numbers, the defensive numbers, I feel like there's a lot to nitpick when it comes to this group, but overall just view of this Gamecocks team and program heading in this game.
No, nothing surprised me because I didn't think South Carolina was going to have a big year this year. I didn't think they were going to take a bigger step last year. And it's not a shot at South Carolina. I was just looking at that as, look at the schedule. Like when you start off with, a rivalry game with North Carolina, you've got Georgia in the first month of the season. You've got Tennessee in the first month of the season. And again, we were thinking of Tennessee being that team from last year with Hendon Hooker, even though they aren't that same team. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's three potential losses in the first month. And then I'll throw this in. I don't think anybody expected Florida to be the team that they've been this year. And nobody expected Missouri to be the team they've been this year. So, like, if I'm a South Carolina fan, I am frustrated. And I'm like, why can't we be Florida this year? Why can't we have the success Missouri's having? We'll see if Missouri and Florida can sustain that, because, Florida's got Georgia this weekend, and things could get interesting. I think you have to give Shane more time. And then I want to see what he does for an encore after Spencer Rattler. What kind of quarterback is the guy in the following years? Because I think that's what Arkansas is going to face, right? Sam Pittman is, he gets a little bit of grace because they did fire Dan Enos and they've had KJ Jefferson. But when KJ Jefferson's gone, is this team going to take a step in the right direction or in the wrong direction? I think South Carolina is in a similar spot. What do you say to that, Chris?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I look at South Carolina and Arkansas very similarly in the sense that, like, Pittman's their guy, Beamer's South Carolina's guy. Both are starting to face some real heat. I think especially Pittman, like you mentioned, I think using Dan Enos as the scapegoat. I think that's something Shane Beamer would benefit this year, probably using Clayton White, his defensive coordinator, in that same manner. And hey, listen, that's just the business, man. It's better you than me, right? Like, I mean, you got to do what you got to do when you're a head coach. Dave, when you look at this football game specifically, you mentioned, and I think the matchup that is really going to determine whether this game, maybe it's a close game going in the fourth quarter or Texas A&M runs away with it, it is that Texas A&M defensive front against South Carolina's beaten, battered, and bruised offensive line. And I mean, David, realistically, even at full strength, South Carolina has struggled mightily, 127th in the country in sacks allowed at 31. Of course, Texas A&M tied for first nationally with 29 sacks. Is it just purely the Aggies have an overwhelming amount of talent? I know you look across the board, Walter Nolan leads the way in the middle, Edrin Cooper at linebacker, but I mean, what is it that makes Texas A&M so good at rushing the passer? And then on that note, I have to think they're licking their chops looking at this game this weekend.
Sure, they are. There's opportunities there, but let me go ahead and tell you, I don't think that's what the game comes down to. A&M's going to get their sacks. They got their sacks against Alabama. I forget the number. I think it was 6, 7 against Jalen Milroe. Okay. They got their sacks against Tennessee. Like, the game doesn't come down to that. The game came down to, at least against Alabama, Jalen Milroe carving them up, throwing deep and finding open receivers. That's what the game comes down to. How many big plays does A&M give up? If Spencer Rattler can go off, and then self-inflicted wounds, A&M is notorious. Let's go back to last year. The game was over in the first 5 minutes. A&M had a chance to win that game, but it was over. Like, you're down 17-0 with 9 minutes to play in the first quarter. Like, that, you don't come back from that on the road in the SEC. And again, Connor Wigman was the quarterback, and he did give them a chance in that game at the end, right? At the very end of the game, he came in. So he did give them, but they didn't get it done. So to me, and it was that way against Alabama, self-inflicted wounds. You give up a dumb safety in that game. Against Tennessee, you give up a punt return for a touchdown. The game to me comes down to a couple things. It comes down to, can they stop the big play from happening? Because everybody's had a field day. Tyler Van Dyke, Jalen Milroe, Hendon Hooker couldn't hit deep, but I know that Spencer Rattler can hit deep, right? So that to me is the game, and then it's the self-inflicted wounds. Does A&M continue to give up? I think it's 4 straight games that they've given up a non-offensive score. You can't do that against teams. And against a team that's 2-5, who is desperate for a win, you can't give them a glimmer of hope. You've got to do to them what you did against Arkansas. And Arkansas, by the way, could have been a game, but Aniyah Smith had a punt return touchdown to get that game out of bay. But you can't give them a glimmer of hope, because I think Shane Beamer and Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette are too talented to not take advantage of opportunities. So to me, it's about not making mistakes that A&M has made this year, and also limiting the big plays. You can give up 2 or 3 big ones. You can't give up more than that.
David, that's a heck of a stat you bring up. 4 straight games that Texas A&M has allowed a non-offensive score, because that segues into, I was going to ask you about, I would have to imagine special teams is a real emphasis with Jimbo and that coaching staff this week, just because of, you look at the game last year between the Gamecocks and Aggies, and I mean, if not for Xavier Legette's opening game kickoff return, that game maybe goes a completely different way. So, you factor in, like you mentioned, 4 straight for Texas A&M allowing a score that's non-offensive, a South Carolina team, like you mentioned, that's desperate. Special teams could play into the big factor yet again. And if you're Texas A&M, I think, or if you're South Carolina, if there's a path to pulling the upset, you'll probably need something like that yet again. I'd imagine, again, Texas A&M is really locked in on making sure that doesn't happen.
We don't get to go to practice, so I don't know. To me, there's a couple, like, if I'm a head coach, there's a couple of obvious things. My first obvious thing is Max Johnson released the ball quicker. That's the obvious one, right? My second thing beyond, can you fix the offensive line? Because that's been an issue this year. Beyond that, I'm like, can we actually get our punt coverage in the right spot? Can we have some special teams has to be a considerable part of this conversation, because when A&M is really good, and we saw it in the Arkansas game, and I think we've seen it in the Auburn game, special teams does play a role. If they can play complementary football with average offense, not bad offense, but average offense with complementary football, A&M wins most games. And they just and look, they could have beat Bama. It came down to the last possession. They could have beat Bama, but we've been saying could have beat everybody. They could have beat South Carolina. They could that's the coulda. You could make a shirt that says coulda, and A&M would be all over it. They could have. They didn't. So yeah, special teams better be a part of the conversation.
David, how do you expect Texas A&M offensively to attack South Carolina? Because as you mentioned, it's a Gamecocks defense that has struggled in basically every facet. Every time they sell out to stop the run, they give up big plays in the passing game. Every time they sell out to stop the passing game, they give up over 200 yards on the ground, it seems. So in a situation like that, I mean, are you expecting more of the running game with Le'Veon Moss and that stable of backs? Are you expecting more of the deep passing game with Smith and Stewart? I believe it's Noah Thomas is the other guy,
yeah.
Explosive threat. Like, what would you expect more? What do you think the offensive attack will be for A&M?
I think it's going to be a typical A&M offensive experience, not what we've seen against Bama and Tennessee, which has become more typical. But what I mean by that is they're going to try to establish the run, and that run opens up the big pass. One of the things Bobby Petrino said when he took over was he wants to feed the studs. They've stopped feeding the studs recently. They need to feed the studs. So if I'm A&M, I'm doing some bubble screens, I'm doing some short slants, I'm getting the ball to Anaya Smith and Evan Stewart whenever I can, and then keeping the defense honest with a balanced run attack. So yeah, I think you'll see Le'Veon Moss. And then once that starts happening, you can throw, South Carolina's had their issue stopping the long ball. Then you open it up with Noah Thomas over the top. And then you find that seam for Anaya Smith to do what Anaya Smith does. But I think it is going to be one thing I'd like to see. I don't know if we're going to see it, but I'd like to see more aggressive play calling. I've seen very predictable look, they got the hostage. You got to stop those hostages. And recently they have been stopped. But I'd like to see a team that goes for the jugular and goes for it early.
David Nuño of TexAgs does a fantastic job. David, one final thing, and I'll get you out of here. One of my talking points going in this one, something I'm really excited to see when you have a pair of teams like A&M and South Carolina maybe dealing with some turmoil behind the scenes, or maybe the seasons aren't quite what each expected. I think something to watch in this game is just, is there one of these two teams, maybe both, maybe none, that come out flat because of, what are we really playing for now? Like, you question the buy-in, you question the, behind the scenes, what's going on. Do you worry about that with Texas A&M at all? Do you sense any dejection, or is this team still fully bought in and you expect them to give their best effort on Saturday?
At this point, I feel like they're all bought in. I don't know what I can say about South Carolina, because I think, they're close to not being bowl eligible, right? Especially with knowing what's ahead.
And that's why it's a big question for me, because at this point, it's just human nature. College kids, it's like, in this era especially.
Yeah, and I agree with the era conversation part of it. I'll say this: A&M still has a chance to have a special season. By special, not the kind of special we all envisioned, but is 9-3 completely off the table? Well, they haven't won a road game since 2021 Missouri, right, midway through the season. So they still got two very difficult road games: Ole Miss next week, and at the end of the season, Baton Rouge for LSU. But is it out of the conversation piece to say that A&M's going to have a chance to win games at the end? They had a chance to beat Alabama at the end. They didn't. They had a chance to beat South Carolina at the end. They didn't. They had a chance to beat Tennessee at the end. They didn't. But they will be in these games. A&M's a team that rarely gets blown out. The closest to a blowout that I've seen was maybe the Miami game, which was a couple scores, and that game was closer than that score indicated. And also the Mississippi State game last year, which was a close game, and then it just got out of hand, which is what happens a lot of times in the SEC. So I think A&M has a lot to play for. If this team wins against South Carolina, it doesn't mean anything yet. You go on the road in what I consider a coaching rivalry game, not a program rivalry game, but there's the Jimbo Fisher versus Lane Kiffin dynamic. If you can string together 2 wins in a row, okay, you get Mississippi State. Now you feel really good about beating Mississippi State at home. I mean, you should feel good. Just like you feel good against South Carolina, you should. Then you get Abilene Christian. Boom. That is now 4 wins in a row. That is possible. I'm not saying this is going to happen, by the way. I'm just saying that's got to be the mindset of the coaching staff and the players across the street. And then you're like, let's go to Baton Rouge and do what we did last year to LSU, but this time do it on the road. You lose to South Carolina, then the last year conversation starts coming up again. Like, are the guys bought in? Who cares if they win next week? Like, it doesn't matter anymore. This team is a joke. And I'm not saying that's going to happen either, because I don't think we saw that last year. If that was the case last year, I don't think they beat LSU to close out the season, right? And put up 38 points on a team that, by the way, LSU was playing for a lot. They were playing for a chance to get invited to the playoffs. Didn't say that was going to happen. They were certainly playing for that. So I do believe that A&M is still all in, but like fans and players, that time is starting to run thin.
David Nuño of TexAgs does a fantastic job covering all things Aggies. David, appreciate you taking the time, man. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Chris, thank you so much for the invite. Love talking to you, man. We'll get you back on the show soon, too.
Absolutely. Okay, that was David Nuño, TexAgs. Always a great conversation with those guys. Like I mentioned, guys, do not forget yours truly going on the Texas A&M, the official Texas A&M pregame show to talk all things Gamecocks and Aggies, break down the game, preview it, what have you. Going to be a great time. We got our good friend Jake Crain, who's about to call in as we close out the show here on this Friday. David Barnes says, Stormtroopers tomorrow. Stormtroopers tomorrow. I have no idea. Jacob says, hate to say it, Mark making Chris look bad. Let me say this, guys. My opinions on what South Carolina does and does not do does not reflect my character, my personal life. So Mark missed the mark there. Let's jump to this conversation.
Press 2.
He joins us every single Friday, our good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Jake, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time.
Man, just excited for another week. I mean, God, we're already in week 9. I mean, it just flies by. I wish it would kind of slow down.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's flying by. How are your bets doing thus far this weekend?
Well, we put out our locks, leans, and dogs today. I'm about even on the midweek this week. I mean, betting midweek games, man. I mean, it's probably the toughest bets there are outside of when James Madison plays, because they're an absolute wagon. I think they're like 8-0 for me this year, and I will be taking them again this weekend. But now, man, tonight's game, FAU Charlotte. I mean, kind of gross, right? I would lean under, but betting unders in midweek games, it's never fun. But no, dude, I'm hot. I think I'm at 64% on the season in college football so far. So yeah, man, up a decent amount of units. So just trying to keep it rolling. Love a lot of unders this weekend, Chris. Love a lot of unders, including the South Carolina A&M game.
Jake, that's actually one that I'm on as well, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. But Jake, we've got to start with this signal gate thing. That is, I actually listened to you guys this morning. I actually tuned in this morning, Jake, to the show. Great job this morning, Flaming Dragon Friday. We love to see it. But yeah, obviously, topic of conversation. What's happened over the last 24 hours? What's crazy about this, Jake, is that the Football Scoop article comes out, and South Carolina is not mentioned anywhere, right? But Tennessee fans start doing a little bit of math. They start going back, pulling some video, and now it feels like there's this, dare I say, conspiracy theory that South Carolina stole signals. And Shane Beamer, I know, has had some run-ins with this before, got fined $25,000 at Vatech or whatever. What's your overall take on this? Because I know this stems from a bigger issue that is the Michigan stuff, and now it's like South Carolina's getting dragged into it. And I loved what you said, Jake, on your show this morning. And it's why I was so comfortable in saying yesterday, and I caught some heat, if you want to call it for that, but like, I don't care if my favorite team, quote unquote, cheats. I certainly don't care if they bend the rules, because if you're not doing it, you're getting left behind and you're getting fired anyway. So your overall thoughts on this madness that has ensued over the last 24 hours?
This is one of the most pettiest, dumbest things I've ever seen. This is what happens, all right, when the NCAA has an agenda against somebody. Because there's been no notice of allegations sent. There's been no proof given saying, oh, you're getting subpoenaed to this. They whispered to some Yahoo Sports writers because the NCAA, who's on their way out of college football, is mad because Jim Harbaugh has come out and mocked them many times. He used his suspension over Burgergate to be able to have other coaches be the head coach, including his father, so made a mockery of that. And he's done this on multiple occasions. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you don't know, everybody, and it's not stealing. Why do we say steal signs? They're not going Tom Cruise Mission Impossible in the facility hanging from a wire. It's out there for everybody to see. When you trade film, you get a wide and a tight. You can see all the signals. You have to change up your signals. That's part of it. It's not stealing. It's observing. So when I look at this, every coach does it. Every organization does it. What you're going to see probably come out of this is a rules clarification in a gray area of what you can technically do, or when it comes to stealing signs, I don't know how you really enforce that outside of the obvious that's going on at Michigan with the guy buying tickets and things like that. But you know what it reminds me of, Chris? It reminds me before NIL when people say, oh, well, at least we're not paying players. Yeah, you are. If you're competitive at all, you're paying players. So what I keep saying is all these people that are piling on Michigan right now, you better be careful, because the further they dig into this, the more bodies they're going to find, and your team may be next because everybody does it. But when it comes down to South Carolina didn't beat Tennessee because they had their signals. South Carolina beat Tennessee because Tennessee thought they were going to roll their helmet out there and be able to dominate a South Carolina team that just lost to a very mediocre Florida team. And South Carolina threw their best punch, and they caught them on a hot day. There's been times, Chris, where the other team's signals, and you still can't stop it. Steve Spurrier, to quote Steven Garcia, didn't change his signals for 30 years, and it still works. And guess what? If you know that they have your signals, you do what TCU did to Michigan. You use it against them. It's gamesmanship. This is so ridiculous. It's because some people don't know how the sport actually operates. It's laughable, in my opinion.
Jake, and I think that's well said. And that really goes back to what I was saying, what you guys said this morning. And I loved what, I guess it's Flaming Dragon Friday. I can't call him by name, but I loved what he said.
Yeah.
That I'd be mad if my team wasn't doing it. I loved when he said that. I'm like, I feel the same. I feel the same.
I would love for somebody to write a manifesto about Auburn football. Like, that'd be great. That's how much you care. How much do you care? To write a manifesto, you really got to care, right? You really got to care. So, look, at the end of the day, it's so overblown. And listen, it doesn't help that Michigan puts out this holier-than-thou attitude, right? I think that's one of the reasons they're getting piled on, is because they try and act like they're more clean and pure than anybody and still win. Comes to find out, you're just as degenerate as the rest of us.
Now, Jacobs, we look ahead to this weekend, South Carolina, Texas A&M. Let me start with this. If the Gamecocks were to go into College Station, go into Kyle Field, pull the major upset, would that be it for Jimbo Fisher?
Oh, yeah, he's toast. Well, I always laugh when people are like, oh, well, the buyout cost this much. Do you know how much money Texas A&M has? Like, do you realize, they don't need to sit here and scrape pennies together and go break a piggy bank to be able to afford Jimbo's buyout. If he loses to South Carolina, they're going to fire Jimbo Fisher, and they're either going to hire Urban Meyer or Mike Elko. That's what'll happen.
Jake, as we look at the game, I agree with you. Under 53.5. I love that number because you look at this one. Texas A&M, not exactly a juggernaut offensively with Max Johnson, Le'Veon Moss at running back. Obviously, they got Stewart. They've got Anaya Smith, Evan Stewart. But offensively for South Carolina, I think that's where, and I think I heard you say on one of your preview shows that the only way the over 53.5 hits is if Texas A&M scores 54. What makes you so confident in the under? Is it South Carolina's offensive line woes? Obviously, they're taking on the best pass rush, basically statistically, in the entire country. Road Rattler, his woes. Like, what do you see in this game that makes the under such an easy play?
Well, I think Texas A&M realizes that South Carolina's deficient up front on both sides of the ball. I think you're going to see them not put the ball in the air a ton, and when they do, it's going to be off play action. They're going to try and make it as I think A&M's going to play very conservative offensively because I think the only way South Carolina wins is if Texas A&M blows it, to be honest. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Now, when you look at probably the worst matchup for South Carolina, it's their offensive line versus the Globonauts that is A&M's front seven. And I'm going to tell you, Alabama's got a really good front seven, right? Georgia's got a really good front seven. A&M may have the best front seven in the country when it comes down to being able to rush the passer and stop the run. And they're at home, a game they have to have. I just don't see a way. And I know South Carolina is probably going to take a page out of the Georgia game, right, early, trying to get the ball out quick. I just don't see them being able to put together either enough explosive plays or enough consistent drives and be able to stay in 3rd and 5 or less to score more than 17 points in this game.
Jake, I know it's recency bias, but have you ever seen a team like South Carolina going through the turmoil they've gone through over the last couple of weeks? I mean, it's not just they've lost 3 in a row, right? It's the Beamer broken foot thing. It's the Beamer press conferences. They just kicked a kid off the team because they asked him to travel and play, and he didn't want to, right? He wanted to take a red shirt or probably wanted to hit the portal. Now you got this sign stealing gate. Like, I mean, what is it about year 3? And like this it feels like a season from hell, Jake, for Gamecock Nation.
Well, unfortunately, I do. I'm an Auburn fan, Chris. So I know all about this. I could write a dissertation on it if I had to. But look, when it rains, it pours, right? When it rains, it pours. If South Carolina if you reverse it, if they were, 5-2, you'd have people saying, yeah, that's right, get him off the team, right? We don't want him messing up what we've got going on. Oh, Shane Beamer broke his foot because he cares that much, right? It's just, look, when it rains, it pours. When you're losing, it shines a light on all the negative things and makes them brighter. That's part of it, just like winning cures a lot of the negative things and downplays some of the negative things going on. So I just think it's a product of the record, and it's a product of, being an SEC team that looks forward to football season every year and is coming off a year where you finished really hot and you're in year 3 and expectations are pretty high. So I think it's a combination of all those things.
Jake, last thing on the A&M game, then I want to get to the rest of the SEC slate, obviously. Is there a path to victory for South Carolina here? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, well, look, as long as you got Spencer Rattler, there's always a chance. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen in football. I mean, Bishop Sycamore tricked ESPN. At that point, anything can happen. But I think for South Carolina to win this game, it's a very small path. It's a 300 style goat path to victory. Spencer's got to throw for over 350 because I don't think they're going to be able to run it, right? Chris, I think we can agree. I'm not super confident in South Carolina's ability to run the ball against A&M in the front seven, as we mentioned. I think Spencer Rattler's got to go nuts. I think Legette's got to go nuts. I think you have to have a couple guys that really punch above their weight offensively and make some wild plays. And then I think A&M's got to help them. I think they've got to turn it over a couple times. I think you've got to have that special teams play, right, that we keep waiting to see, that we keep talking about is coming. When are you going to get a couple of those? It's a very narrow path, but it is a combination of multiple things. It's not just one thing.
Jake, looking at the rest of the SEC slate, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party takes place tomorrow at 3:30. Yeah. Does Florida have a shot at the upset with no Brock Bowers for Georgia? What is life like for them after the Brock Bowers injury?
Well, it sure as hell helps because obviously Brock Bowers was a security blanket for Carson Beck. Not that at this point, Dominic Lovett and Ra Thomas, y'all got to come on if you're Georgia. If there was ever a time to come on, it's now. You're proven commodities. You've had success in this league before, but there's kind of an unknown there with Carson Beck, right? It's, the first time you go walking out on your own a little bit without Brock Bowers. But I will say Ladd McConkey is getting healthier. I think he's going to turn in that security blanket. You get Amarius Mims back. You're getting healthier at the running back position. And Carson Beck has shown the ability to keep them ahead of the chains and play efficiently. He's an older guy with not a ton of playing experience. There's a big difference between being a freshman that's going out there without a ton of playing experience and a guy like Carson Beck who's been able to kind of bide his time and he understands what he's looking at. But I tell you what, man, Florida's been punching above their weight the whole year. I think Graham Mertz has been one of the biggest surprises in college football. Even when they haven't been able to run it, he's found success through the air. I think Florida's going to keep this game close for about 2.5 quarters. I actually like Florida to cover the 14.5. I love the under in this game at 49.5. I think both teams are going to play, kind of protect the quarterbacks a little bit. But I think Georgia finds a way into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter to get too far ahead and wins the game. But I expect it to be tight.
Jake, arguably the best pillow fight of the weekend, Auburn, Mississippi State. What are you expecting for that one?
That's cripple fight, 100% cripple fight. You know what I expect? The under. Surprise, surprise.
Hey, is it another 3-2 game by chance?
Well, that may be a shootout compared to this one. If anybody can find a way to win 1-0, it's going to be in this game. But look, I think Peyton Thorne at home, he's a different player. That's been one of the biggest problems for Auburn at quarterback is he's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, depending on if he's on the road or at home. We don't know is Will Rogers going to play this week. Is it going to be Mike Wright? That obviously changes kind of the dynamic of how you defend them. Arkansas last week looked anemic. I expect this to be another low-scoring game. It's a pick 'em to me. So whenever it's a pick 'em, I always tend to default to the home team.
Jake Crain of Crain & Company does a fantastic job. Jake, one last thing. We'll get you out of here. A lot of great games this weekend. I didn't even mention Tennessee, Kentucky. We've got Oregon, Utah. We've got Duke, Louisville. What are you most excited to see this weekend? What questions do you want answered?
I'm interested to see how Oklahoma bounces back after that scare last week at Kansas. It looks like Jalen Daniels is not going to play. It's going to be Josh Bean. How does this team kind of bounce back? I'm sure Venable's been on him all week. Interested to see that one. Then, with Duke, Riley Leonard, his health, is he going to be able to be the dual threat guy that he's been? Elko's going to have a good plan defensively for Louisville. And both those teams are still in the ACC hunt. That North Carolina loss was huge to Virginia because now if you're Louisville or Duke, you're sitting there with one loss. Loser of this one has 2 losses, maybe out of it. The winner puts himself in a really good position. Duke still has to play North Carolina, so I'm interested to see that. And then Oregon, Utah, man. I think Oregon's going to win the game. I think they have more balance than USC. But seeing Bo Nix on the road, and I love Kyle Whittingham and what he's done out there at Utah. I'm just wondering, is that big upset out there this weekend, right? Like the one we didn't see coming? That's what I got my eye on a little bit.
Jake Crain, always a pleasure, my friend. I appreciate you. And just so you know, I already knew exactly what you were going to say this entire conversation because I got the intel, I got the signs, and I had the wristband on this entire time. Spoiler.
Yeah, definitely. Well, congrats on the 63 points.
Jake, you're the man. We'll do it again next week, my friend. I appreciate you.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff, guys. Jake Crain of Crain & Company. That's going to do it for us, guys. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you all again. Do not forget, yours truly going to be on the Texas A&M pregame show tomorrow morning, 9:20 a.m. Eastern. Of course, our watch party at Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. All my low country Gamecocks, come on out. And wherever you are, you want to make the drive down to Hilton Head, going to be one hell of a time. We'll also be operating the post-game call-in show from Carolina Cigars, taking your questions, your comments, your calls immediately following South Carolina's game against Texas A&M. And again, I want to echo this one more time because I've been getting questions in the Discord. I am able to separate, guys, my personal, right, my morality, everything I believe in on the personal side from my favorite team. So if I say something like, I don't care if my favorite team, I don't care if they bend the rules. I don't care if they quote unquote cheat to win. That is in no way, shape, or form a reflection on my personal beliefs in regards to my relationships, my business, whatever it might be. My morality as a human being, my character. So just wanted to clarify that and make sure you guys understood that, because unfortunately our friend Marc Ryan said some things that I adamantly disagree with and that I don't take personally, but some of you may have heard that and thought one thing or another. So I just wanted to clarify that, put that out there, guys. It's sports. It's not that serious. Guys, again, appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. And of course, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And you check us out there. Daily pods dropping on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Friday. Go Cox. Beat Texas A&M. And we will talk to you all tomorrow from Carolina Cigar.